Here we go.
Therapy dudes, take away your stress, put you in a good mood. If you had them over, they would eat up all your food. It's time for therapy dudes.
Andre Karkamas, one of the therapy dudes. How you doing?
I'm good, man. How about you?
I'm doing pretty good right now. I just got a little burst of enthusiasm because I'm excited to be doing our podcast. However, we
Oh,
are today going to be talking about managing political and global news and how to this is all part of our anxiety theme for the month. So
right.
it's going to be, think about that stuff and how to just deal with that so that it doesn't become something. There's like got to be a balance point, right? We don't want to completely ignore it and just bury our head in the sand. At the same time, if we sit there and just overthink this stuff, it can really start to like put us in this kind of perpetual anxious doom and gloom kind of state. So I don't know. I'm wondering how are you experiencing this with any of your clients? Is this something that's been coming up?
Oh, so many of them. A lot of my clients are doomsday people now, suddenly, you know. Um, I have some clients that are happy about what's going on. I have clients that aren't happy. Um, it really comes down to like what you feed yourself is what you're going to interpret. So if you're constantly putting in information that says, we're losing our rights, the economy's going to crash, all this kind of stuff, that's how you're going to feel about the world. So, we might want to limit how much intake, not a judgment either way, right? But we might want to limit how much we access that kind of information because it can really, program us to think a certain way that's really not helpful.
Yeah. And I would go a step farther. I think it is fine to put a judgment on it that that is not mentally healthy, right? It is not mentally healthy to have an unboundaried relationship with anxiety producing information that we can't control, right? We
Right.
have unless somebody is very sort of well connected in the government, a lot of the stuff that is coming out is stuff that we can't control. And the media presents this stuff in a way that is meant to be emotionally jarring. It's meant to have this apocalyptic tone
Right.
because that's what gets the clicks. So,
Yeah, we want to follow what could be really terrible to see if we're going to be okay.
right, right. And even if it's not terrible and apocalyptic, the media is going to try to make it sound that way because that's what gets the clicks. And
It's cognitive distortion 101. If I have you catastrophizing, you're going to fixate on whatever topic you're catastrophizing, right?
yes,
So, there are a lot of theories that are being played out in the media. There are a lot of ideas. There are some terrible things that are happening. There are also some good things that are happening, but if we're focusing on the negatives only and we're catastrophizing, I mean, we're wired to look for solutions and ways to protect ourselves.
Andre,
Yes,
are you using your new microphone?
I am. Do
You
you not
are.
do you
Okay.
not hear me?
No, I can't, but now it sounds even tighter when you lean in like that.
Oh, I gotta lean it. It's because I'm leaning back. Oh God. All right.
Uh-oh. Uh-oh, that lean back gaming chair is gonna get the best of you. I just want to make sure you're using the microphone because, being sponsored by Boulder Psychological Services, check out boulderpsychologicalservices.com for all your therapy needs. Um, being being I think
Did you say therapy nudes?
I
What
think
did
I
you just
just said
say?
I think I was thinking therapy news, but
News, but and
I should
dude.
have said needs, and
Uh,
then I went to therapy dudes, and I think it came out therapy nudes.
yeah, it was. We're just. Yeah, That's not what we meant to say.
I'm
It's
so
not a
sorry.
thing. There's no such thing as therapy news. That's not going to happen. Yeah.
Wow, I hope that doesn't become a little tick that I repeat ever again.
I hope not too. It's okay that it happened though. You are very old. So
Right, right. I lose my words. I'm gonna blame it on old age. Um, wow, I can't even remember what we were talking about. The microphone, before the microphone, back to how to
God,
limit and boundary
you
stuff.
would think I would get it by now with the microphone. You would think. I mean, how many freaking podcasts do we have to do before I nail it? Is this working? Can we, before
It
I just
sounds
continue?
fantastic. It
Okay.
sounds fantastic.
Okay.
Um,
Wonderful.
and it wasn't like how many times. There was only like one time where your computer wasn't working and you
Yeah,
had to record on a different device, and I think that was particularly tricky. But this microphone ought to, take us to the next level of professionalism.
I hope so. I mean, I'm basically whispering. Are you picking this up?
Yes,
Okay,
that's
good. All right,
that's
good.
not a whisper. That's
All
not.
right. That's okay. Well, it's right next to my face. Okay, good. I was just um I was just talking about how fear mongering is a very good tactic psychologically to keep people focused on certain material. Um, the media, they want hits, they want advertising sales, they want all that stuff. And if I scare the hell out of you and tell you, hey, by the way, like all these terrible things are going to happen, so you better stay tuned. You're going to stay tuned because you don't want these terrible things to happen.
Yeah.
And this has been going on for a long time, well before Trump got elected, right? Like this is what the media does. It,
Yes.
it
Yes.
doesn't
And
matter what side of the pendulum. This is what they do.
yeah, and since we have, phones in our pocket that can deliver all this information, that 24-hour news cycle is, in our face unless we really work on boundarying ourselves. And to
Right.
that note, I believe that it's useful to go through an exercise where we are really trying to imagine what our optimal relationship is with all of this oversaturation of information. And questions along those lines, I think, would include in the first half hour when you wake up during the day,
Right.
what do you want your relationship to news and information to be? While you're at work or at school, what percentage of that time do you want to be thinking about stuff unrelated to your work or school?
Yeah.
Especially, in regards to the news or the overwhelming kind of anxiety producing stuff that we're talking about. And as you transition back from work or school to home, how much time do you want to be spending on that? What do you think is going to be mentally healthy for you and find the right balance for you? And then in the evening, as you're winding down, what do you want that to look like? Because I would imagine when we look at those questions, that most of us would say, oh, like I really shouldn't be, consuming very much. Like a half hour a day is probably plenty.
Yeah. I would argue probably too much, but um I mean this is actually a really great point. Whatever we decide to focus on when we wake up is the tone for our day, right? And how much we want to fixate on any stressor, anything that has kind of like a negative connotation to it. We really can fixate on these things and catastrophize them, and fixation leads to cognitive distortions.
Hmm. That's a great point. And I think being intentional about, yeah, how do we want to start our day is really important.
Yeah.
And to that point, our our bodies, when we're in harmony with the circadian rhythms, right? And and the sleep wake cycle is kind of consistent, and we're waking up with the sun's clock, and you're just kind of doing all those things. Our body wakes up with a little bit of energy and a sense of like, all right, it's time to get going and do something that is life affirming. So in the modern world, that could be, doing a little prep for our day, cleaning up a little bit, doing some self-care, just, getting our like hygiene routines going. It could be reading a book. It could be reaching out to people, it could be sort of rehearsing the day and doing something intentional with our planning so that we've got a good sense of how to be putting our best self forward. But when we grab our screen and our dopamine and serotonin reward systems are getting hacked by what we're clicking on, then our brain actually thinks that it's accomplished something life affirming. Not our like smart, cognitive brain, but our lizard brain, the part that is kind of wired to survive long enough to reproduce, is thinking, "Oh, I've accomplished something because I'm getting these rewards." The rewards are meant to be when we do something life affirming, right? When we actually connect with community and our tribe, so to speak, and get a sense of making a difference that way, or feeling a sense of belonging. When we do something that kind of furthers our life goals that help us, on beyond survival, but to like, in the modern world, sort of like career or academic success. Those
Hmm.
kind of things are what that's a natural reward of dopamine and serotonin when we're doing those things successfully. We're not hacking our brain when we get those rewards. But if we click on our phone and it starts to just, give us little bits of adrenaline hits, give us little bits of dopamine or serotonin hits, get on social media, see how many likes our posts got, get onto a game and just start clicking and getting the dopamine hits from that. All of that tricks our lizard brain into thinking, hey, I've accomplished something in this first half hour of the day. I don't need to do anything. And
Yeah.
that's that's really out of alignment, right? It really
Yeah,
matters quite
truly.
a bit what we do when we start our day and what we do when we end our day, especially in relationship to some of this anxiety producing stuff that we're talking about that we need to boundary and limit online.
Yeah. Well said. I mean, I'm also thinking about like just the simple fact that when we're in our emotions too long, we start to view the world through that lens. And if we're in fear, for instance, for too long, we start to fill in the gaps with the information we don't know about the world and what could be going on with a lot of fear-based thoughts. Same with anger, same with sadness, right? Same with hopelessness. These are the reasons why we need to learn to emotionally regulate, right? Because we're we're essentially living in a part of our brain that's irrational when we're fixating on things or we're um you know the fixation isn't coming because you want to understand things logically. The fixation is coming from an actual fear or a anger or a sadness or something like that. Like, there's some kind of a survival type thing playing out, right? Or some
Right.
kind of narrative we're trying to undo about ourselves or the world. So it's really important to recognize that, when we're talking about media in general, or even social media, or just like any kind of intake of information, if we have an association with that that makes us feel a certain way, maybe not good enough or scared or like whatever it is, um, the brain is going to keep consuming that because it's going to try to understand it through that emotional route that we're kind of living in. It's not going to use logic, right?
Right.
We're going to catastrophize. And then, like this is why you'll hear people saying, extremes on either side of the political spectrum, right? You just hear these really crazy narratives on the far right and the far left, and these are people who are extraordinarily fixated on what they think is right and what could be going on in the world, and it's coming from an emotional place. It's not necessarily coming from a rational place. And they fill in the gaps with the villainization that they have for the other side, right?
Yep.
And so I don't you hear these people the narrative being like we're more divided than ever. Well, this is why. This is why we're more divided than ever. Nobody's seeing anything or each other for who they are. They're seeing through the lens of their own emotion, through the lens of their own experience and what they think is going on and the evidence that they have for their side of things, right?
Yeah. And there's very polarized thinking. It's black and white thinking. It's not nuanced. the
Right.
the ability to kind of trigger people with, soundbite headlines,
Yeah.
make people feel very anxious, and myself included. I'm not exempt from that. Um,
No.
but that kind of thing politically and for the media is something that they want. The polarization drives their economy, right? It gets more donations for politicians, it gets more clicks and more advertising dollars for the media. So to cater to one side or the other and to have a very kind of bipolar energy in the culture does reward a lot of people. And, the reality is that for most people, if we get to know them, we're going to find a point of commonality in something that, connects us on a human level.
Yeah.
Uh,
And we're gonna find what's ours and what's theirs.
right? Right.
Yeah.
And, like when the fires are going on in LA, it's like somebody's, house burned down. It's not like a Republican or a Democrat's house burned down. It's like, somebody's going through a tragedy. When, things happen in somebody's family that are difficult, it's like
Yeah.
very natural to feel compassion or empathy for what they're going through. And it's bigger than these political divisions. But we've gotten into a very kind of, polarized situation. It's like, oh, if you're not of the same political thinking as me, then I can't hang out with you or any
Right.
of your
You're no
friends.
longer
Or-
human. You're this kind of different other being, like
Right. And we project on them like the three or four worst talking points that we've heard about, the other side of this political spectrum
right.
or
Yeah.
political coin at this point. It feels like it's not even a spectrum. It's like
Yeah.
two sides. Um, so being intentional about that, I think really matters. Being intentional about how we think about people, being intentional about how we boundary ourselves around the consumption of news and other information matters. And part of being intentional about it is brainstorming and kind of, rehearsing and setting an intention of how we want to be day to day, or, as we get up in the morning, as we go to bed at night in
Yeah.
relationship to that stuff. What's actually going to put us in a situation where we can like feel like we're ready to take on our day and we feel basically good a lot of the time and can, go after some challenges in the world. If we're just in a doom or gloom place, we actually can't really, help even in small ways.
No,
And
because that's survival mode.
yeah,
Like
yeah,
we can't really take care of other people or ourselves because we're sitting here catastrophe. This is why it's a cognitive distortion,
yeah,
right? And like I'm hearing clients well, we'll talk about that, in the next portion of this lecture, but I think it's really important to understand that when what you fixate on your mind, what you put energy into emotionally, it's not only like self-destructive at times, it's deceitful. The
mm,
heart and the mind can be very easily deceived, right? By emotion.
yeah,
It overrides logic. And you know, when you're burning inside and you're feeling anxious or sad or hopeless, that's all you can see typically. And you're going to look for things in the media and you're going to look for things in your day-to-day life that confirm what you're seeing. People don't care about each other. Look at how that guy just like honked at that other guy on the road and like look at how mean everyone is. Look at how this person just cut this person off. Like this kind of stuff. I hear these things from clients more and more lately.
yeah,
And it just makes me think, everyone is looking at each other in a very um divided way because politics are very divided and we become a society that lives under the umbrella of cognitive distortions around this kind of stuff, right?
yeah, yeah.
It's kind of sad to me. I do feel bad about it.
Um, it it makes sense that it's sad, and it's something that I think as therapists we have to, practice our own self-care and our own boundary limiting and figure out, what it is that's going to be necessary for us to kind of get up and do our day and feel pretty good most of the time. And
Yeah.
it's we're not going to solve the world's problems, but we can kick ass in our corner of the world, right? We can do things in our community that are going to help on a, local level, on an individual level. And that's that's important, right? If we're part of, a force for positive change and for good, that's useful. And that's, I think, the standard that we should set for ourselves. It shouldn't be like, oh my gosh, these global problems are so big. I either need to solve the world's problems or just accept defeat and, that it's hopeless. That's
Right.
that's way too black and white thinking, right? We want to be able to recognize that, if we do something and it helps a person in our community, or we show up for some kind of, I know that in Denver this past weekend there was like a immigration march going on, a protest going on, and that my neighbors went to that, and they really got a lot out of that experience. And that's right. That's, I think, finding ways that you can, contribute your time and your energy into trying to make a difference, while at the same time knowing that, it's not right. It's not our job to try to figure out like how do we fix what's going on with, the expulsion of immigrants from our country. And that's too much for any one person. We're all like, burdened with our day-to-day stuff and just kind of getting through. And to feel
Yeah.
responsible for that, I think is another way that we end up like, I don't know, it's kind of that deceitful word was very strong, but I think it's, it makes sense, right? We're putting ourselves into a predicament where there's no win.
Exactly. And I guess that's the point. Like, terrible things happen every day. It's not great that that happens. How much agency do we have over certain terrible things that are happening? And how terrible are the things that are happening? Like to what level are we filling in the blanks to make it exponentially worse than it is? Or like what are we actually seeing compared to what's actually going on?
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? Like this is really important. And I know a lot of people die by the cross on either side of the spectrum for their political view. And I see that those people are more often than not frustrated. They feel like they're out of control. They feel, if their side is doing well, they feel very empowered. On the political spectrum, if their side isn't doing well, they feel like they don't have any agency. I don't know if you're getting a lot of this from clients, like we're moving out of the country, we're giving up on America, like that kind of stuff.
Oh,
That's just
absolutely.
that's not a good place to be, and it's actually really illogical, right? Like I don't think we give up on a country because we don't like the way that the politics are at the current time, right? I think it's more about what you said. How do I show up for the things I believe in a way that's kind of balanced, right? Like I'm not overextending myself in a way that like causes me day-to-day grief, but like how do I help my communities in the micro level? How do I touch people's hearts like day to day, and how do I find purpose and meaning while I, subjectively feel like my country's falling apart?
Yeah. Yeah. I know we gotta wrap this one. It's a big topic. We've, barely scratched the surface. We're gonna hit it again from a more personal note in the next one. But
Right.
thanks for listening. Like and subscribe. We'll see you next time.
Therapy dudes, take away your stress.